Book the Second, Chapter 11 of Armadale. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nadine Kurt-Boulet. Armadale by Wilkie Collins. 11. Miss Gwilt among the quicksands. 1. From the Reverend Decimus Brock to Ozias Midwinter. Thursday. My dear Midwinter, no words can tell what a relief it was to me to get your letter this morning, and what a happiness I honestly feel in having been thus far proved to be in the wrong. The precautions you have taken in case the woman should still confirm my apprehensions by venturing herself at Thorpe Ambrose seem to me to be all that can be desired. You are no doubt sure to hear of her from one or other of the people in the lawyer's office, whom you have asked to inform you of the appearance of a stranger in the town. I am the more pleased at finding how entirely I can trust you in this matter, for I am likely to be obliged to leave Allan's interests longer than I supposed solely in your hands. My visit to Thorpe Ambrose must, I regret to say, be deferred for 2 months. The only one of my brother clergymen in London who is able to take my duty for me cannot make it convenient to remove with his family to Somersetshire before that time. I have no alternative but to finish my business here, and be back at my rectory on Saturday next. If anything happens, you will, of course, instantly communicate with me; and, in that case, be the inconvenience what it may, I must leave home for Thorpe Ambrose. If, on the other hand, all goes more smoothly than my own obstinate apprehensions will allow me to suppose, then Allan, to whom I have written, must not expect to see me till this day 2 months. No result has, up to this time, rewarded our exertions to recover the trace lost at the railway. I will keep my letter open, however, until post time, in case the next few hours bring any news. Always truly yours, Decimus Brock. P.S. I have just heard from the lawyers. They have found out the name the woman passed by in London. If this discovery, not a very important one, I am afraid, suggests any new course of proceeding to you, pray act on it at once. The name is Miss Gwilt. 2. From Miss Gwilt to Mrs. Oldershaw. The Cottage, Thorpe Ambrose, Saturday, June 28. If you will promise not to be alarmed, Mamma Oldershaw, I will begin this letter in a very odd way by copying a page of a letter written by somebody else. You have an excellent memory, and you may not have forgotten that I received a note from Major Milroy's mother, after she had engaged me as governess, on Monday last. It was dated and signed, and here it is as far as the first page. June 23rd, 1851. Dear Madam, pray excuse my troubling you, before you go to Thorpe Ambrose, with a word more about the habits observed in my son's household. When I had the pleasure of seeing you at 2 o'clock to-day, in Kingsdown Crescent, I had another appointment in a distant part of London at 3, and, in the hurry of the moment, 1 or 2 little matters escaped me which I think I ought to impress on your attention. The rest of the letter is not of the slightest importance, but the lines that I have just copied are well worthy of all the attention you can bestow on them. They have saved me from discovery, my dear, before I have been a week in Major Milroy's service. It happened no later than yesterday evening, and it began and ended in this manner. There is a gentleman here, of whom I shall have more to say presently, who is an intimate friend of young Armadale's, and who bears the strange name of Midwinter. He contrived yesterday to speak to me alone in the park. Almost as soon as he opened his lips, I found that my name had been discovered in London, no doubt by the Somersetshire clergyman, and that Mr. Midwinter had been chosen, evidently by the same person, to identify the Miss Gwilt who had vanished from Brompton with the Miss Gwilt who had appeared at Thorpe Ambrose. You foresaw this danger, I remember, but you could scarcely have imagined that the exposure would threaten me so soon. I spare you the details of our conversation to come to the end. Mr. Midwinter put the matter very delicately, declaring, to my great surprise, that he felt quite certain himself that I was not the Miss Gwilt of whom his friend was in search, and that he only acted as he did out of regard to the anxiety of a person whose wishes he was bound to respect. Would I assist him in setting that anxiety completely at rest, as far as I was concerned, by kindly answering one plain question, which he had no other right to ask me than the right my indulgence might give him? The lost Miss Gwilt had been missed on Monday last, at 2 o'clock, in the crowd on the platform of the North Western Railway, in Euston Square. Would I authorize him to say that on that day and at that hour the Miss Gwilt who was Major Milroy's governess had never been near the place? I need hardly tell you that I seized the fine opportunity he had given me of disarming all future suspicion. I took a high tone on the spot, and met him with the old lady's letter. He politely refused to look at it. I insisted on his looking at it. "I don't choose to be mistaken," I said, "for a woman who may be a bad character, because she happens to bear, or to have assumed, the same name as mine. I insist on your reading the first part of this letter for my satisfaction, if not for your own." He was obliged to comply; and there was the proof, in the old lady's handwriting, that, at 2 o'clock on Monday last, she and I were together in Kingsdown Crescent, which any directory would tell him is a crescent in Bayswater. I leave you to imagine his apologies, and the perfect sweetness with which I received them. I might, of course, if I had not preserved the letter, have referred him to you or to the major's mother, with similar results. As it is, the object has been gained without trouble or delay. I have been proved not to be myself; and one of the many dangers that threaten me at Thorpe Ambrose is a danger blown over from this moment. Your housemaid's face may not be a very handsome one, but there is no denying that it has done us excellent service. So much for the past; now for the future. You shall hear how I get on with the people about me, and you shall judge for yourself what the chances are for and against my becoming mistress of Thorpe Ambrose. Let me begin with young Armadale, because it is beginning with good news. I have produced the right impression on him already, and heaven knows that is nothing to boast of. Any moderately good-looking woman who chose to take the trouble could make him fall in love with her. He is a rattle-pated young fool, one of those noisy, rosy, light-haired, good-tempered men whom I particularly detest. I had a whole hour alone with him in a boat the first day I came here, and I have made good use of my time, I can tell you, from that day to this. The only difficulty with him is the difficulty of concealing my own feelings, especially when he turns my dislike of him into downright hatred by sometimes reminding me of his mother. I really never saw a man whom I could use so ill if I had the opportunity. He will give me the opportunity, I believe, if no accident happens, sooner than we calculated on. I have just returned from a party at the great house, in celebration of the Rent Day dinner, and the squire's attentions to me, and my modest reluctance to receive them, have already excited general remark. My pupil, Miss Milroy, comes next. She, too, is rosy and foolish, and, what is more, awkward and squat and freckled and ill-tempered and ill-dressed. No fear of her, though she hates me like poison, which is a great comfort, for I get rid of her out of lesson time and walking time. It is perfectly easy to see that she has made the most of her opportunities with young Armadale, opportunities, by the by, which we never calculated on, and that she has been stupid enough to let him slip through her fingers. When I tell you that she is obliged, for the sake of appearances, to go with her father and me to the little entertainments at Thorpe Ambrose, and to see how young Armadale admires me, you will understand the kind of place I hold in her affections. She would try me past all endurance if I didn't see that I aggravate her by keeping my temper, so of course I keep it. If I do break out, it will be over our lessons, not over our French, or grammar, history, and globes, but over our music. No words can say how I feel for her poor piano. Half the musical girls in England ought to have their fingers chopped off in the interest of society, and, if I had my way, Miss Milroy's fingers should be executed first.